Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our meeting of October the 28th, 2019. As a first order of business, we're going to start. I would like to ask Mayor Watson to join our board solicitor, David White, at the podium to be officially sworn in as a member of the Ottawa Police Services Board.
Simply ask you to repeat. I solemnly swear that I will be loyal to Her Majesty the Queen and to Canada.
I solemnly swear that I will be loyal to Her Majesty the Queen and to Canada.
That I will uphold the Constitution of Canada.
That I will uphold the Constitution of Canada.
And that I will, to the best of my ability.
And that I will, to the best of my ability.
Discharge my duties as a member of the City of Ottawa Police Services Board faithfully.
Discharge my duties as a member of the City of Ottawa Police Services Board faithfully.
Impartially and according to the Police Services Act.
Impartially and according to the Police Services Act.
Any other act and any regulation, rule, or bylaw.
Any other act, any regulation, rule, or bylaw.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Je jure solennement que je serai fidèle à Sa Majesté la Reine et au Canada.
Je jure solennement que je serai fidèle à Sa Majesté la Reine et au Canada.
Que je respecterai la Constitution du Canada.
Et que je respecterai la Constitution du Canada.
Et que, au mieux de mon habilité,
et que, au mieux de mon habilité,
je m'acquitterai fidèlement, impartialement et conformément à la loi sur les services policiers.
Je m'acquitterai fidèlement, impartialement et conformément à la loi sur les services policiers,
aux autres lois et leurs règlements d'application, aux règles et aux règlements municipaux,
aux autres lois, aux leurs règlements d'application, règles et aux règlements municipaux et administratifs,
de mes fonctions de membre de la Commission des services policiers de la Ville d'Ottawa.
De mes fonctions de membre de la Commission des services policiers de la Ville d'Ottawa.
Ainsi Dieu me soit en aide.
Ainsi Dieu me soit en aide.
Welcome to Police Services Board.
Merci. Thank you.
Merci.
I think we'll stay here for a moment of silence. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Looking forward to this. Come on out here. Yeah. Good Wayne, he's got the most circulation. Right, thank you. Thank you.
Before we begin the formal part of our agenda, I would like us to all observe a moment of silence and reflection for the tragic passing of Constable Thomas Roberts. Thank you very much, everybody. In addition to the mayor, there are some other new faces around the table today. Today is the first day for our new chief of police, Peter Slowly. He was sworn in bright and early this morning at a private ceremony in front of the frontline officers before they went out on the road. There will be a public change of command ceremony taking place on November 26th at the EY Centre that the community is invited to attend. Details of this can be found on the Ottawa Police Service website. Peter, on behalf of the board, I wish to welcome you and your family to Ottawa and to our police service. Ottawa Police is doing great work, and we are excited to have you join and help lead that work. We're also looking forward to seeing the ideas that you come up with. Usually they say a new chief is given a honeymoon, a period of about 6 months. But I'm sorry, in your case, this has been reduced to 4 months. In all serious note, though, we are happy to have you here and to be working with you. I'm personally excited to see what progress we can collectively make together on several fronts, including community policing, member wellness, modernizing our work environment, and equity, diversity, and inclusion. I also want to extend a sincere thank you to Steve Bell, who served as our interim chief in the past few months, as well as the senior command team. Thank you for your ongoing leadership of the men and women of this service. We have had some challenging times in the past few months, and you all rose to the occasion. Thank you. So we'll now move to the confirmation of the agenda and the add-ons. Oh, yes, it's not on this thing. Also, I've been reminded, there's some Algonquin students here today, so I wanted to welcome you, and I'm delighted to see you back. I think we had some Algonquin students before, and they seem to enjoy it, so hopefully you guys will as well. Thanks for coming. So with respect to the agenda, we have a few requested add-ons. All board members were provided with copies in advance. On the public agenda, we have the 2020 budget directions and timetable. This report reflects the discussions that took place at September 10th Finance and Audit Committee meeting. The committee discussed having the OPS prepare the draft budget based on a 3% tax increase and an estimated 1.5% increase in taxes resulting from growth in the assessment base. This report formalizes the direction from the board. We have response to inquiry number 1-1704, recruitment practices. This report is in response to an outstanding inquiry listed in item 11 on the agenda. And on the in-camera agenda, I am looking to add an item pertaining to a personnel matter involving a named individual. Is the amended agenda carried? Thank you. So now we'll start with the confirmation of minutes. Minutes number 12 of 23rd of September 2019, that the Ottawa Police Services Board confirm minutes number 12 of the 23rd 2019 meeting. Is this carried? Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Committee meetings, reports from committee chairs and minutes. Complaints Committee, draft minutes number 3, 18th of October 2019, that the Ottawa Police Services Board receive this item for information. Is this received? Okay. Andrea, will you update?
Yeah, it's been a while. The Complaints Committee met in camera on October 18th to review a service complaint. The committee developed recommendations concerning the disposition of the complaint, and the recommendations will be considered by the board at the in-camera meeting this evening.
Is this item received?
Received.
Are there any inquiries? Nope. Now, items of business. Number 1 is the Chief's verbal report. We'll hold this. Number 2 is National Capital Area Crime Stopper semi-annual report. This is a presentation, so we'll hold that. Number 3 is Performance Management Program and New Recruits Pilot presentation, so we'll hold that. Number 4 is the Board Committee Appointments, Executive Director's Report, that the Ottawa Police Services Board approved the appointment of Dee Nerman to the Human Resources Committee, replacing Dee Deans. Number 2, the appointment of Jay Watson to the Finance and Audit Committee, replacing Dee Deans. And number 3, appointment of Jay Watson to the Complaints Committee, replacing Kay Aglai. Is this carried? Thank you. Number 5, Complaints Report, Part 5, Police Services Act, 3rd quarter 2019. I have a question on this, so we'll hold that. Number 6, the Modernization Roadmap Update. that the Ottawa Police Services Board received this report for information. Were there any questions on that, or can we carry it? Thank you. Or receive it, sorry. Number 7, the interoperable mobile communications managed service, Chief's report. I have a question on this, so we'll hold that one. Number 8, the report on the SIU investigation, Chief's report, that the Ottawa Police Services Board received this report for information. If there are no questions, we'll receive it. Received. Number 9, legal services status report, third quarter 2019. I think we have some questions on that, so we'll hold that one. Number 10, board monitoring requirements status report, third quarter 2019. Executive Director's report, that the Ottawa Police Services Board received this report for information. Can we receive this? Received. Number 11, outstanding board inquiries and motions, October 2019. Executive Director's report, that the Ottawa Police Services Board received this report for information. You have a question, Mayor Watson? We'd pay extra to have them working over there.
I know it's too late now, but the lease extension, 19 Fairmont Avenue,
I can, maybe it'd be good to get an answer because that was investigated, but perhaps Mr. Letourneau, you would like to comment on that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did, the OPS did work with the city's real estate branch and looked at all options, and CREO actually negotiated the lease on our behalf.
Okay, so this comes where?
Thank you. Yeah, just because I know that they do have some new property that came out. I recognize this was at the last meeting, which I was not a member of, but thank you for the answer.
So do you want to read this whole thing?
You have to read this.
Thank you. Okay. So letters of commendation, Chief's report, that the Ottawa Police Services Board received this report for information. Is that received? Thank you. And now we have the 2020 budget directions and timetable. The report recommendations are that the Ottawa Police Services Board directs staff to prepare the 2020 draft operating and capital budgets based on a 3% tax increase and an estimated 1.5% increase in taxes resulting from growth in assessment base. And 2, approve the 2020 budget review and approval timetable. Is this carried? Thank you. So we'll now go back to the first held item, which was the Chief's report.
Well, thank you, Chair Smallwood and Board. Folks, thanks very much for those of you who've come down today. Bon après-midi à Monsieur le Président Smallwood et aux membres de la Commission de services policiers. Je suis honoré de vous présenter aujourd'hui mon premier compte rendu verbal. As you know, I was sworn in as the new Ottawa Police Chief this morning. The ceremony occurred at 6:45 a.m. on the morning parade at 474 Elgin, so that my first official act as Chief was to be with and to pay tribute to our frontline officers, along with our civilian members as they started their day in service of the City of Ottawa. I'm grateful for the support that I've received so far from you, the members of the Board, from the members of the Ottawa Police Service and the residents of the City of Ottawa itself. I want to especially recognize the ongoing support from Diane Deans, who I continue to hold in thought and prayer for a full recovery and a speedy return for her full-time duties as councillor and board chair. Members from all around the service and people from across the city have welcomed me, provided me with invaluable insights into the current state of affairs, and committed themselves to work with me to help build a better police service and a safer city. My interactions included meetings with both the Ottawa Police Association and the Senior Officers Association. I can tell you, I've had very productive conversations with Senior Officer President Joan McKenna and Ottawa Police Association President Matt Scoff. There is a true spirit of optimism amongst all parties that we can work together to build a stronger organization that better supports the OPS members and the community at large. I know I will also need to visit all of the communities and neighborhoods that we serve, from Orleans to Canada, Manotick to Munster. I actually looked at the map. Mayor Watson, you showed me that map in your office, and it shows the geography that the OPS covers, and it is as much as Montreal, Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver combined. That's a lot of territory, with many diverse communities which require some customized approaches to police service delivery. What works in our urban centers may not work as well in the suburbs or out in the rural areas. Peu importe où vous travaillez au sein du service ou où vous vivez à Ottawa, j'ai hâte de travailler avec vous, de servir et de mieux vous connaître à cours des 5 prochaines années et plus. I am committed to faithfully implementing the board's strategic plan that was developed in consultation with members of the public and members of the police service. Advancing community policing, making meaningful progress on equity, diversity, and inclusion, supporting our members, and modernizing the work environment. My approach to accomplishing the OPS strategy will be focused on the following 3 areas. First, people and partnerships. We will do everything possible to enable and advance the reality that 100% of the OPS policing mission gets done by our members and the problem-solving partnerships they form with the community. Next, prevention and precision. We will be a more proactive and intelligence-driven organization that seeks first to prevent public safety problems from occurring, and when needed, we are capable of more precise, effective, investigative, and prosecutory interventions. And last, performance and progress. We will raise our individual and collective levels of performance, and we will demonstrate real progress in accomplishing our strategic goals. Please know that my first 3 to 6 months as chief will require me to have a relentless focus on the first of these areas, people and partnerships. My focus on people and partnerships is in part based on the unique circumstances of Ottawa's geographical size. This has resulted in the majority of OPS members living within the city limits. This is in contrast to Toronto and other large urban areas, where between 80 to 90% of members live outside of the city. I believe this creates a unique dynamic where our members have a lot of skin in the game, which can translate into greater personal and professional commitment to serve and safeguard the city where they live, work, and play. Over the course of my tenure as chief, I will maintain this focus of supporting and empowering the folks who are doing the heavy lifting for the OPS, the frontline officers and their supervisors, along with the frontline civilians and their managers. It will certainly be important to help the OPS members to feel more engaged, more valued, and more empowered in order for them to deliver the highest quality police service to the community. I'm committed to doing more to keep our members safe and healthy, with a stronger focus on member wellness, including ensuring the right supports are in place so that nobody feels isolated or alone. We need to work at getting better together to erase the stigma in policing that asking for help is a sign of weakness. As police members, we are always there to help the community, but we must be more willing to do more for each other as well. It is important for me to take the time to get to know the OPS members, and it's also important for me to give the time to the members to get to know me as well. I also plan on getting out into the different communities that make up this great city. I'm also excited to meet our community partners who sacrifice so much to work in partnership with us while both defending and supporting us when we are unfairly attacked, as well as holding us to account when we have not yet met their reasonable expectations. I want to hear what the community has to say, to listen to their ideas, and to work with them to build a safer, more livable city. As I invest more in our people, I will be absolutely committed to investing more in our partnerships with the community. My best public safety and public service experiences were the result of neighborhood policing. Neighborhood policing will be the cornerstone of the OPS's core policing strategy. It will allow our members the best opportunity to give and earn respect. Within our most marginalized and victimized communities, it will result in more collaborative and effective partnerships. It will provide the most valuable and timely sources of information and intelligence. It will result in better investigations, prosecutions, and convictions for individuals who choose to prey on vulnerable persons in this city. Neighborhood policing creates a symbiotic relationship where the OPS and the community actually co-produce public safety. I have also been very busy getting my family settled into Ottawa, moving to a new city, getting my kids registered in school, purchasing a new home here. Most importantly, buying some really warm winter coats. These are just a few of the things which we've been doing together as a family. We're excited to go out and explore all that the nation's capital has to offer. I want you to know that I see the OPS as my new work family. It is a family where we give each other unyielding support, but we also sometimes have to apply tough love and corrective discipline. We celebrate individual successes, but we put aside petty disagreements, and we pull together and work through stressful times. We deal with illness, overcome tragic loss of life, manage through financial difficulties, and resolve complex internal family matters. It should be a place where we're not afraid to have difficult discussions, or ask hard questions, or engage in courageous conversations, because they lead to the most effective solutions. A family where we will be honest and respectful in our dealings with each other, where we will make tough decisions and go through big changes together. I can tell you some decisions will not be popular with some people, and there will be changes that will be difficult for all of us. But we will do it for the good of the family and for the city that we live and work in. The city and citizens of Ottawa need our help. They want us in their neighborhoods, and they want to work with us. But they first want us to fix our own house before we come and try to fix theirs. For outsiders like me, it is clear that we need some organizational healing and reconciling. We need to become more of a family than a loose collection of factions and fractious individuals. We need to be more willing to work out our differences than simply airing them publicly through leaks. This process of reconciliation and relationship building needs to occur at every level of the organization. But first and foremost, it needs to happen at the very top of the organization. Chair, it will start with me. It will include my executive team on down and throughout the entire organization. We need to create the conditions for a critical mass of progressive and inclusive leaders at the OPS to enable more transparent, consistent, and equitable decision-making. We need to develop and promote a more collaborative and innovative culture that results in more effective strategy implementation, rigorous program evaluation, and continuous organizational improvement. No person, no family, no organization, no community, no city is perfect. We all have strengths and weaknesses. The OPS is no different. But I am convinced that this police service has the people, the partnerships, and the potential to be the best in the country and one of the best in the world. I'm increasingly impressed with the dedication, compassion, and professionalism of the OPS membership. And I hope the public will take the time to review the list of commendations, letters of accommodation that have been put in for the members across this service for the work that they do across this city. I truly believe that the police are the most visible element of a functioning democracy. So the police service of jurisdiction in Canada's capital city can and should be the leader of modern, inclusive, and effective policing in this country. There is much work to be done to bring this vision and mission to fruition. I know we can do this, but only if we work together as a team, between the board and the service, between management and frontline, and between our members and their community partners. This has been a very exciting day for me. It was my return to policing, a passion for me. It was my first day as a chief of police of the Ottawa Police Service. It was my first day as a resident of this city, and I am no longer unemployed. I know there will be many more exciting days to come. I also know there will be difficult days ahead as well. But I am grateful, truly grateful, for all who have helped me take this first step on this first day, and to all who will be with me for the rest of the journey. So thank you. I'm happy to take any questions that the board may have for me at this time. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Chief. I can say personally just how powerful your words are and how much they strike right at the heart of what we're all about. And I think I speak on behalf of all the board members in saying this is a really exciting day for us and a really exciting time. And I think you can see by the turnout that the entire city is very interested in hearing from you and being here to support you and help in this new era as we move forward. But I'll turn it to my fellow board members to see if there are some questions or comments that members would like to make. The Mayor.
Just very briefly, Chief, congratulations
Thank you, sir.
on your swearing in this morning. It was wasn't great getting up at 5:30 in the morning to come to 6:30, but it was a great event, and I could see how you are and have connected with the officers that you've met so far, and we certainly look forward to working with you. I've talked to a number of friends in Toronto who have nothing but high praise for you, and we look forward to working with you. I also want to thank Interim Chief Bell for his leadership role, and Deputy Oswald Well, we awaited your arrival in Ottawa. Alors, certainement pour moi, c'est une occasion pour dire félicitations, bonne chance, et merci pour vos mots. Comme Mr. Smallwood a dit, I think the words have resonated well, not just with the officers, but your desire to reach out to the broader community. You know, that map, I think some of my colleagues roll their eyes up when I show people that map, but it is a telling tale of the large geography that you and your officers have to cover. 2,700 square kilometers, bigger than those 5 large Canadian cities combined. So we look forward to working with you, and thank you very much for accepting the offer. And of course, I too want to pass along our thanks to our chair, Councillor Deans, who is in a battle of her own, but was very much responsible for you being here today as our new chief. So congratulations, félicitations, and the very best to you and your family as you settle in the nation's capital. If I could just finally, one final comment, there are lots of police chiefs around the country, but there's only one that represents the nation's capital, and that is, I think, something that I think of every time as mayor of the nation's capital, and I know you will as well. It's a special responsibility to represent the city as well as the nation's capital, so bonne chance.
Indeed. Thank you, sir. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Member Valiquet.
Je tiens à vous féliciter, chef. Je vous remercie pour vos efforts à parler en français. Je vous encourage à continuer. Et puis, comme mes collègues, je vous souhaite la bienvenue à Ottawa. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Member Blostein.
I also want to welcome you very much. I'm thrilled with the way you chose to get sworn in this morning, from doing it at parade to having the senior constable present you with your badge. It was a very classy move, and I encourage you to continue in that trend. And I thank you, and I welcome you personally.
Thank you.
Member Meehan.
I can't say it any better than the mayor and Andrea, but we do look forward to working with you. And I just want to say thank you to Steve. Steve's done a remarkable, remarkable job, and thank you so much. But it is a new era. It is a new era, and I'm looking forward to it, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
Member Norman.
Welcome, Chief Stolley. thank you very much for being here and giving the vision, your vision for the next 5 years. My esteemed colleagues have already welcomed you. Nothing more to add except that welcome, and we as a board, I can say on my behalf, and I agree, all will agree, whatever support you need from us in fulfilling those obligations, meeting the community relationship, I will be always there to help you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So, that the Ottawa Police Services Board received this report for information. Received? Thank you. We'll now move on to item number 2, the National Capital Area Crime Stopper Semi-Annual Report. And I believe Richard McMullen, the President, is here to give us a presentation.
Good afternoon, and thank you once again for the opportunity to be here on a special day. It's really nice. This is my 13th semi-annual report over the years to the Police Services Board, and I'm especially proud to represent one of those community partnerships that we've had since 1985 with the Ottawa Police Service. And it's a great honor. Congratulations, Chief. Welcome to Ottawa, and you've got a phenomenal police service and a great community to police as well. So thank you for that. The report that we've submitted highlights a few areas that we've been working on. We're beginning a recruitment for a few new board members. So I see lots of folks in the audience today. It would be nice if somebody would like to volunteer. It's a great opportunity to connect with your community and help with community service while helping to protect the community as well. We welcome several new youth volunteers over the summer. These young folks bring tremendous skills and expertise and some really interesting language skills to our program. So it's exciting to see them and how they progress over the next few months. We've been active with community events across our region, attending events held by neighborhood associations, city councilors, a whole variety of community engagement. And I can tell you that that's been a focus that we've had, that I've had for the last 6.5 years as the president locally of our Crime Stoppers team, is to be out in the community. That's the only way you can engage the public to come forward and trust us with information that they may have. And that's been very successful. When I think back to about 6 years ago, we've seen our tip volume almost double today. And so we'll talk a little bit about some of the statistics as well. Our police coordinator, Constable Getz, was recently appointed to the Ontario Association of Crime Stoppers. It's an advisory board, so she's begun attending regular meetings in the Toronto area. And I think this is going to be impactful for our local program, as well as helping to bring some of the successes that we've had in our region to other programs across the province. I also want to take a second and pass on our commendation to the entire Ottawa Police Service investigative teams that manage our tips. I can tell you that the dispositions that we receive back from the police service is becoming increasingly faster. That allows us to provide those cash rewards even faster to the tipsters. But more importantly, it shows us that the tips that we're providing are being acted on and swiftly engaged, and that's tremendous, and we'll see that in some of our statistics that we report on. You know, I talked about the number of tips. So far this year, our tip volume is down slightly. Nevertheless, the tip quality continues to go up. You know, just in the first 9 months of 2019, we've contributed to 60 arrests, 34 criminal cases being cleared, 295 criminal charges. just slightly under $250,000 in illegal narcotics taken off our streets, and 16 recovered arms. This is tremendous when I look back over the years, and we've always had an impact. This is the most significant impact in taking illegal arms off the street that we've ever had. And that is a direct result, I believe, of our community engagement and partnership. We've also seen, as a result of that increased volume, our cash reward, the tips that we provide, has hovered just slightly over $15,000 so far this year. That's a lot. For an organization that doesn't have direct tax funding, we're reliant on donations and fundraising and other type events. So quality of the tips continues to go up. The investigative response from our police partners has been incredible, and we've seen a steady increase. And again, as I mentioned earlier, that community outreach, those focus activities that we have a tremendous impact. And I believe they're going to continue. You know, some of the events that we go to include things like Loblaws and Great Canadian Superstore fundraising for food drives. For us, it's an opportunity to connect directly with the public, and that has a tremendous impact on the tips. You know, our volunteers participated this year. We were invited to the RCMP sunset ceremonies, and we had information tables and connected with the broader community at large. Those types of interactions are positive, and those continue to yield results. We were invited to the Ottawa Youth Race this past September, and it was an interesting opportunity to have a sort of a information table again as they launched their activities, and it was quite nice. As I mentioned earlier, almost every councillor has had us at a community event, a fun fair, an evening, and those are great for our engagement. We're active in the Ottawa community housing area. We were most recently in the Banff-Ledbury area with community evening. And again, these things help us. We're going to be in the Vanier community on Halloween with our Crime Stoppers van out patrolling and being active in the community and being engaged. The other thing we've been busy with is we hosted our other neighboring Crime Stoppers program. So in Quinte, that includes Belleville, Cornwall area, Renfrew County, to a zone meeting hosted here in Ottawa. And that was a great opportunity for us to share best practices, some success stories. We also had a pretty informative presentation from the Ministry of Finance, contraband tobacco, which is a pretty significant industry that needs some attention. So did that. Constable Getz and myself attended the Ontario Association of Crime Stoppers conference back in June, and again, it was an interesting learning opportunity for us, sharing information. We had a chance to present on some of the things that we were doing. They've got a dynamic lineup of speakers. The Minister Bill Blair was there, former Chief of Toronto Police, provided us with a keynote, and it was quite good. On our media front, we launched a new media partnership with Chin Radio, where they're going to broadcast multi-language public service announcements at no charge to our program as we kind of build a strong relationship with them. Before I finish, I just want to thank, you know, I know there's a full team of media represented behind me. They're instrumental in getting our messaging out, as is the OPS media team. They mention the Crime Stoppers 1-800 number on every broadcast. And I can tell you that it has a tremendous impact in soliciting the public's release of information to Crime Stoppers. So I just want to thank and encourage them to continue that because it does have a great effect. January is going to be a Crime Stoppers month, again, across the country. And this year's theme echoes the Chief's remarks, and it's creating partnerships against crime. And partnerships are vital, not just to the police service, but to the community. Connecting as we've done, and I can tell you that it is not easy. It is a challenge from time to time, but it is absolutely worthwhile. So Crime Prevention Week comes up next week, and look for us at all of the events alongside our police partners. We're excited to participate. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Richard, once again. And I think your statistics show the excellent work that you do in the community. So thank you for this. My fellow members, are there some questions? Yes, Councillor Amin?
I was just interested in the number of firearms that were surrendered, because were they surrendered or were they confiscated?
So we don't do any kind of surrendering program per se.
They was confiscated.
It's all as a result of anonymous tips that come through to us and we share with our law enforcement partners. So those tips are investigated by law enforcement, and when they report back to us that a firearm was seized as a result of our tip, that's what we represent. So,
And remind us again about how many were taken off the street because of this?
so in the first 9 months of this year, because that's when our statistics end, it's 16, which is quite significant.
And you suggested more than any other year?
It's been the most that I've seen in the last 7 years for sure.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from board members? If not, the motion would be that the Ottawa Police Services Board receive this report for information. Is this received? Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is number 3, Performance Management Program and New Recruits Pilot Presentation.
You'll have to work one while we go. Okay, how do we get the technology to work? There we go. There we go. So you just have to hit the buzzer as we go. Thank you, Chair Smallwood. We appreciate the opportunity to come in and present the OPS Performance Management Program to the board this evening. First, before I begin, I'll just introduce who's at the table with me here today. To my immediate left is Inspector Heather Lachine, and to her left is Acting CHRO Michelle Rathwell. I'd also like to recognize a couple of other members of the Talent Development and Performance Management team that are in the audience that had a significant contribution in this program. Kim Stirrup is the Acting Manager of the Talent Development and Management team, and Tricia Caron is the Talent Management Advisor. With that, I'm going to jump right in. So the OPS runs a comprehensive performance management program. The Talent Development and Management section is accountable for the program, and this section is a team of 3 civilians. Policy 3.19 outlines the program with the purpose of recognizing the value and contribution of all members. The goals of the program are clear and involve the following: supporting our members throughout their careers, identifying development needs and opportunities for all members, providing meaningful feedback, and providing an objective, consistent approach to managing performance. The key components of the program are job descriptions for every position. These clearly describe the duties, responsibilities, and competencies of each position. A talent management system is in place and all members have access to it. Performance reviews are completed annually for all members, except new recruits during their probationary period. They follow a separate process, and Inspector Lachine will talk about that later on in the presentation. Performance reviews have a 5-point rating scale. Members must be at a meets expectations or above in order to be eligible for promotion. The following slide depicts the performance management program cycle. The process begins in Q4 through the intake interview, where performance expectations are set for the coming year and career development aspirations are identified. Step 2 involves managing and tracking performance throughout the year. This involves regular feedback between the supervisor and the member, documented through tracking log and emails, along with regular face-to-face contact and communication. The final step in the process is the performance review, the annual assessment of a member's work performance written by a supervisor. It's based on observed and documented behavior, and it's meant to reflect the member's overall performance in all positions held throughout the year. And then the process starts again the following year. Performance feedback is critical throughout the performance cycle. Supervisors are required to share performance feedback with members on a regular basis throughout the year, both positive and constructive. If performance concerns exist, supervisors are required to communicate and address those concerns face-to-face with the member in a timely manner, document those concerns in writing, and engage the member in resolving the performance issues through performance development plans or performance plans of action. The program continues to evolve. Some recent enhancements include the senior officer performance calibration process, which is happening in 2019. And at a high level, this is a process to ensure consistency of ratings across ranks. And the new recruit performance management process or pilot that I'm now going to turn the presentation over to Inspector Lachine, and she'll walk you through.
Thank you. So with the new recruit performance management, pre-2018, recruits were assessed both at a 250-hour and 500-hour milestones. PDC worked with the performance management team and identified that there were some inconsistencies and inconsistent tracking tools for the coach officers. Also, we received feedback from the coach officers with respect to that, and there was a lack of process for early identification of performance issues of the recruits. So post-2018, there was a pilot process that was launched in May 2018. What this gave was better assessment tools for the coach officers and more consistency for each of the coach officers to use when assessing the recruits. What this was progress reports, which were given every 2 weeks, and better consistent assessment tools. Also, there's an internal audit in October 2019, and this will be finished in December, and the plan is to update the program and the policies once the pilot and the audit are complete in early 2020. So this slide will outline essentially the timelines. It's a very good description of the timelines for the new recruits. When they come in and they start, once they're hired by our amazing outreach recruitment team, they attend PDC for training, which is 4 weeks. Then they attend the Ontario Police College, which is 13 weeks of training. When they return from the Ontario Police College, they come back to PDC for 5 more weeks to train with our team specific to Ottawa Police training. An important date to note here is this is just prior to them going to the road. This is when they're sworn in as constables. So that is effectively the start of their probation period. Shortly after that, they start the in-car training with their coach officer, and then the new recruit progress reports, which, like I stated, every 2 weeks, and this leads up to the first 250-hour review. Then we have the midpoint assessment, which is a 250 review. They then return to PDC again for 5 more weeks of training with our own team. And they go back to their coach officers once that's completed, continue with the every 2 weeks of the progress reports, and then the final PR, the 500-hour, is the performance review, which is completed and identified whether they are prepared for independent patrol and whether they're ready to go out on their own. If they are, if it's determined that they are, then they're released to independent patrol, and the 12-month post-swear-in date and a probation period. So the coach officer's roles and responsibilities. On the platoons, what we look for are leadership qualities, and the members that become the coach officers, they must have at least 3 years before being considered to coach a new recruit. So a coach officer is trained, it's a 1-week training through the Professional Development Center, and they're trained to provide the new recruit with a semi-controlled environment in which they can continue to both learn and apply newly acquired skills. So this is where we have the various assessment tools. For the coach officer selection, if they are interested, they express their interest to their platoon sergeant. It's taken into consideration, and they fill out a form, an Ottawa Police Request for Course form. The sergeant signs off on the form, and it's submitted to PDC, and then they're chosen from there if it's agreed upon that they have what is required to be a coach officer. So the coach officers shall set out clear expectations for the new recruit. So that is the first assessment. They meet with the recruit, and this is where they set out the expectations and what they're looking for. They communicate on an ongoing basis with respect to work performance, appropriate behaviors, and conduct. That's generally just verbal. They document performance and include both positive observations and performance concerns throughout the entire assessment period. So during this, it's not just, this is via email, also their tracking log, but it's also constant communication with the recruit. They also consult and communicate with the sergeant and the PDC throughout the assessment period and provide objective performance assessments which are supported by examples at the required levels. I'll discuss those a little bit further here. And these are the assessment tools that we have. So the first meeting and the coach interview, this is when they sit down and it's documented. Also, a new assessment tool with this pilot that is given to coach officers is a call review form. This is a specific form that can be filled out to outline how a recruit performs at various calls for services. So it's basically checks in the box which outline their communication skills, if they made an arrest, how did that work, their report writing skills, those types of things. Also another is the progress report. So this was implemented with the pilot, and that's the every 2 weeks, where it is it's documented in writing and verbally discussed with the recruit, and we include the sergeants in this process as well. Also, there's various things on the wiki pages for the coach officers, performance, court, etc., that they can go to. If there are any identifiable concerns, there are training plans that are put in place specifically for the new recruits so that we can ensure they're getting exactly what's required for their success. Like I stated earlier, the midpoint assessment form, that's the official 250-hour PR. Now, what's done with that is it's filled out by the coach officer, it goes to the sergeant who signs off, it then goes to the staff sergeant who signs off, and it also goes to the inspector of the platoon who must then sign off, and then it goes back to the Professional Development Center so that they can keep a record of it. This enables us to have the ability to determine if there are any concerns, what does this recruit need, what can we do to make sure that they're successful, what extra training potentially do they require. And then there's the final assessment, which is the 500-hour, and this is when it's ultimately determined as to whether the recruit will be able to go on independent patrol on their own. So if there are concerns, for example, that are identified or training and developmental needs, there are various things that the platoon will work with the Professional Development Center, and there's driver training, RMS training, use of force and scenario training. If there's identified language training, then we work with Greybridge Malcolm to have the recruit attend and develop further. And there's also courses and policy procedure review, CPKN, intranet. So we work closely from the patrol side. I just came from the patrol side, and now I'm going to the PDC side again. So we work very closely hand in hand to develop a proper training plan to ensure the success of the recruit. And that's it. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. I think it looks like a real improvement over the old system. I think it's very robust and very impressive. I'm sure there's some questions. I know Member Nerman, you had a question. I'll start with you.
Thank you, Chair Smallwood. I have a small clarification on slide 4, which says in the event where the performance concern exit supervisors must. Now, does it includes, or in case any of your officer has a mental illness or psychological issues prior to the finalization of the annual report, those accommodations will be made in that performance report?
I'm not sure, sorry, could you?
In the performance report, when you are completing the performance report, and in the third quarter, say somebody is suffering from a mental sickness or has a psychological issues, will the supervisor or the exit officer supervisor will be making those accommodations into the performance report?
No.
No?
Hi, I can respond to this. No, performance is basically performance, but if there are any health concerns that are identified, then we would link the officer or the member to our health and safety and lifestyles team to be able to deal with that, those issues. And maybe accommodation, yes, but it's not handled through the performance scenario.
So let me clarify again. Say quarter first, everything was fine, but in quarter 3, he's suffering from those issues, so you will be dealing with him or her separately or into this process?
We would deal with these separately. We would put the performance appraisal on hold. We would deal with any sort of medical issue that would be needed to be dealt with, and then we'd come back to any issues that we would have with respect to performance.
Thank you.
Member Valiquet.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I was looking forward to it. I have a couple of questions. From what I gather, I understand that the coach is key. That's a key individual in supporting and making sure that the recruit is getting everything that he or she requires, right? That's correct. Okay. So my question is, during the training session, could a recruit have more than one coach?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Sometimes they have, sometimes there are 2. It depends. Staff sergeants do things differently. Oftentimes, for the first 250 hours, they have 1 coach officer.
Right.
And for the second half, they have a 2nd coach officer. It just provides them the opportunity to see different ways of doing things.
Learn different
ways of
things
thinking.
from different
Absolutely.
perspective?
Yes.
Fair enough. So my question is, if a recruit, for some reason or another, the chemistry isn't there between the recruit and the coach, what happens then? What if there's something that the feeling, the working environment isn't the best? What's the first step in dealing with that issue?
Well, the first step would be if we would hope that the recruit would come forward. This is one of those things that we would, when they come through PDC, we try to ensure that they're aware that if something doesn't feel right with them, that they absolutely can speak to the sergeant. If they don't feel comfortable, for example, speaking to their own coach officer, they could go to the sergeant and advise of their concerns. Again, for us, our priority is the success of the recruit.
Right.
So if something is not working with them and the coach officer that they're with, we will work with them to put them with another coach officer and continue to assess that and follow.
All right, so what you're telling me is if the recruit is having issues with their coach, which might be very difficult for a recruit to sort of go over that coach's head and
Yes.
lodge a complaint, is it done in? Is it provided to that recruit the opportunity to be able to do that? So in other words, does a recruit have the chance to talk with someone else other than their coach in order to express what may or may not be working with that particular trainer?
That's a great question. It's nothing, it's not per se done, it's not a policy per se
Right.
that is there.
Okay.
What I can tell you, for example, when I worked at PDC, when we're there as a resource as well, and I had recruits come to me when they came back from their first 250 hours and had concerns, and in that circumstance, I reached out to the staff sergeant on that platoon and said, can we do something, can we work? It's a delicate situation because you don't want to upset anybody, but
Right.
again, we want to ensure the best success. And it is, you're right, that's something that definitely should be considered potentially when the recruits come through PDC initially, to speak to them about the importance of them being comfortable and being able to speak up if they don't feel comfortable in a situation.
Yes, because I would think, especially with so much of the time and effort that we're spending right now, we've got such a great program going. We're bringing in recruits like we never have. We're also looking at as many that are from our racialized communities. And I'm just wondering if our coaches understand that there might be different ways that recruits need to be trained because of where they come from, okay? So I'm thinking in terms of, I think you mentioned that coaches get 1 week of training.
That's correct.
Okay, so does that training include things like bias-free training or cultural competency? Are those kinds of subject matters that are discussed with the coaches so that they better understand, you have a new type of recruit here. Are you well equipped to deal with some of the issues or difficulties that some of them might have? And I'm thinking in terms from a language perspective. So if a recruit has difficulty expressing themselves or in their writing capabilities, all of those issues are something that, is different from someone who, for instance, has no difficulty speaking or writing in English, but
Yes.
someone who has a cultural background that's different. Is this part of the coach's training to actually deal and be sensitized with those kinds of issues?
The training that you referred to is not specifically in the coach officer training program, but they do receive that training. The type of training in the specific week is management and leadership, various adult learning styles. In what they do, feedback, giving feedback, delegating, problem-solving, communication strategies. So it would be included in that aspect. Coaching skills, they go through the performance management. They do have extensive respectful workplace training, which would include that information as well, ethics and leadership, and they go through various case studies in which they would sit down and go through various situations that have occurred in the past and how they would deal with that. Okay. So that would include the various different types of learning, potentially situations where a recruit does have concerns or there are concerns regarding the learning of the recruit. What does the coach officer do to ensure that they know what needs to be done if there are concerns regarding the learning of the recruit? And immediately the process in place is they are taught to immediately contact the Professional Development Center, and that's where we have the different tools that we can use to improve the performance of the recruit. Okay. So like I said, the language training, the driver training, the scenarios if they're having an issue with respect to their use of force or dealing with scenario situations.
Wonderful, thank you. I wonder if you could tell me, coming back to the bias-free training, who provides that training to the coaches?
I would have to, do you have that in? I'm sorry, pardon?
Global Affairs Canada
Thank you.
is working in collaboration with OPS and providing that training to all of our membership at this point. There is not a specific coach officer session for that training specific at this time.
Do you not think that would be something that would be important at this point in time in our...
It's an excellent suggestion.
Yeah, okay. And my very last question, sorry for, this is dear to my heart. What happens to a coach who doesn't seem to cut it? It's really somebody who may not be their calling. Is there a way of evaluating that? And what do you have in place to deal with that?
So for a situation where a coach officer is having issues or has not done perhaps a requirement of the coaching program and process, in that circumstance, we rely on the chain of command to either work with that coach officer to identify what issues are occurring. There could be a circumstance when they do, I mean, we talk about coach officer burnout as well. How many recruits have they had? How often do they have a recruit? So we rely on the chain of command knowing their members, and if they identify that the coach officer is having an issue, what we ask is the supervisor to bring the coach officer in, have the discussions, track that as well as far as documentation. If it's something that's a requirement to be put in the tracking log, then that would be done as well. Jeff spoke of the performance management and the tracking logs, but that cannot be done without having a discussion with the member to ensure that the coach officer is aware of what the issues are. We obviously as well need to give the coach officer the opportunity to improve as well, but as you say, this is one of the most important roles that are in the police service, because they are working with the newest members that are coming in, and we want to make sure that they have the tools required as well. So we would just work with them, and if it was something that was identified, then perhaps they would need to go back and do more coach training. One of the things that we will be implementing as well is yearly refresher training for coach officers. Because of the inconsistencies that were identified prior to 2018, a yearly refresher so that everyone is up on the latest training, and it will provide consistency for the program.
So obviously, the tracking log is key, because that's the communication piece that's done not on a day-to-day basis, but whenever an issue comes up, that's how you track.
Yeah, the tracking log and the progress reports.
Right.
They're both very important.
Right, okay. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Miss?
Thank you.
Just one-
Member Mann?
Oh, Jeff has
Sorry,
something.
just,
Sorry, Jeff?
just follow on, just one other point. It was in the presentation, it might not have resonated. However, the coach officer program is being audited by our internal audit team at the moment, and we'll be receiving the results of that in the December-January timeframe. And we'll be looking any recommendations coming out of that audit related to compliance and effectiveness. We'd be looking to implement changes.
Thank you, Jeff. Member Mann?
My question sort of builds on what Suzanne was asking, and that is, other than having to be a police officer for 3 years, is there a criteria that a coach officer has to meet, and are they screened about, are there certain things that maybe we would not like to see in a coach officer, or there's obviously people I think that could just step up and do a great job, but I'm just wondering if there is a screening process that they would have to go through.
I'll answer that. Well, basically, they do go through, like I said, they look for the platoons. The sergeants look for the members on the platoon who are showing leadership qualities. We also, it's really important for the coach officers, you want to identify someone who wants to do the job. You don't want to say to somebody who's really not interested in being a coach officer that it's something that they have to do. So it's something, if nobody has come forward to say, I'm very interested in this, then we would ask the sergeants to canvass. They would have to have a progress report that meets as well, meets all the qualifications that are required. So they have to have proven and shown that they're doing their job well. And so then it's a collaboration basically with if they come to the sergeant and say that they're interested in doing so, then the sergeant would speak to the staff sergeant and they would collaborate on that and discuss and take a look and ensure that their performance review, take a look at how their performance reviews were. and then would put their name forward to the Professional Development Center.
So potentially, if we had an officer who was 10 years in the field and is going to be teamed up with a young recruit, would that officer get a little bit of up-to-date training on some of the, the PDC training, the 5 weeks, what they're learning, then the OPC training, 13 weeks? So they're speaking the same language, because obviously procedures and methods of doing things change, and, as time progresses. So would an older officer know the lingo, be up to date with everything that the young recruit is getting, and sort of be on side with that? It's a sort of a generational thing. I'm conscious of it.
No, absolutely. The coach officers do the yearly training themselves, where they go and they do the use of force and the defensive tactics.
It's a fairly stringent procedure for the coach officers then, that's I guess what I'm asking. Yeah.
The training?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, they come in and they go through, I don't know specifically if it is defined exactly what the recruits do at the Ontario Police College. It's something that's definitely discussed in the very first meeting between the coach officer and the recruit, and they're spending a lot of time together in the car, so they've discussed the training that they do. And essentially, what they do at the Ontario Police College is training with respect to the Highway Traffic Act, the Criminal Code of Canada, use of force, police vehicle operations, PVO. So all of that is preparing them to come in and actually do the job, and that is what the coach officer is going to assist them in doing.
Okay.
So.
No, I'm just worried about time, because time changes things, as long as they're on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But it's important to remember that our coach officers also take their mandatory annual use of force training as well every year. So they're up to speed on the latest de-escalation tactics and training tactics.
Thank you. Member Valiquet, you have a follow-up question, series of questions?
Thank you very much. I have one last thought. I'm very happy that you're going to be conducting the audit. I think there's a real need for always circling back to find out how effective are we, what's the rate of unfortunate situations where a recruit doesn't work out. Do we understand why that's happening? Again, because we've spent so much time and money in trying to recruit them. My question is, what about asking the recruit to provide feedback on the coach? Allowing that recruit an opportunity to give their assessment of their coaching, the training they received from their coach. Just putting it out there for you.
No, I think that's a great suggestion. I think the process is always evolving. We're always looking at ways to improve. So I think that's something that we can take back with the team and look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that presentation. This really, and I appreciate all the questions, because this really does get at the heart of the future of our police service. So thank you for that. That the Ottawa Police Services Board received this presentation for information. Received? Thank you. The next item on our agenda is number 5, Complaints Report, Part 5, Police Services Act, third quarter. I had a question on this one. I'm not sure if who's going to answer this, but
Chair, we're going to have Lop come up for this one.
whatever works for you. There's fine. So I just wondered, when I read the report, I noticed a sizable increase with respect to public complaints received in the third quarter. I think it was like a 42% increase. And I'm just wondering, this jumped out at me, and I'm just wondering if you had a comment on that.
Yes, each one of these tables there's table 1 and table 2, and they have to be taken in conjunction with each other. So on table 2, well, table 1, you're correct, it says 42% increase. But on table 2, when it shows the actual complaint investigations, the total number in the Q3 for 2019 is at 33, and 2018 is just 31. And We believe the reason for the difference is that as OIPRD is begin screening their calls a little differently as they come in. They tend to wait now for the end result or the back end as opposed to doing it up front. And you'll see under the table 1 with the 42% increase that 24 of those complaints were actually dismissed by the OIPRD on the basis they were determined to be frivolous, vexatious, or over the 6 months limitation or not in the best interest of the public to proceed. We think in the past, they used to do those kind of right at the front end, and it wouldn't necessarily be reported, and now they're doing it at the tail end, and it's jumping those numbers up. But the real one you want to worry about is or concern about is Table 2, which shows the actual investigations.
So we should see going forward, this should level out then?
Well, it should actually end up being the same we saw it in Q2 as well.
Thank you very much. Were there any other questions on this item? If not, that the Ottawa Police Services Board receive this report for information. Received? Thank you. The next item is the interoperable mobile communications managed service. I had a question about this. Great. I just wondered, I noticed that there were many improvements mentioned, which sounds great, including installing new equipment on Elgin Street, but I didn't see a timeline for that.
Sorry, you're referring specifically to what area?
It talked about for the new mobile communications. I think one of the things they're doing is putting specific equipment into the Elgin Street station to allow this to get rid of the dead spots, which has been a real issue. And I'm just wondering, what's the timelines for the installation of the new equipment on Elgin Street?
Okay, so I think you're talking about the courthouse, and I'll just ask Superintendent Rayom to update us on the timeline if he has that.
Are you talking about the courthouse or actually 474 Elgin?
I just saw in the report it mentioned on Elgin Street, so but in either case, I mean, are they putting new equipment in both? And if they are, when are they putting it in?
474, there is equipment already installed.
Right.
And what it is, it's just tweaking the system on a continual basis. And then at 161, it's just a whole new antenna that's going to get put in, and then the equipment will follow with that. And they said that'll be in Q1 of 2020.
Okay, Q1 of 2020. That's what I wanted to hear. Okay, great. Thanks very much. Are there any other questions on item number 7? That the Ottawa Police Services Board receive this report for information? Thank you. Number 9, Legal Services Status Report, 3rd quarter. I believe Member Valiquet has a question on this one.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. I'm interested in the labor, employment, and human rights claims. From what I gathered, I'm not sure how many we've had so far this year. I think there are 9 new in this 3rd quarter. Is there any way that you could tell me, give me a breakdown on what those types of claims have been?
Mr. Chair, you're right, that's the 9 reported are just in the last quarter. 4 of those are labor and employment matters, so generally speaking, that would be grievances in the ordinary course, either rising to conciliation or to arbitration. 5 of those, the remaining 5 are human rights matters, and those can come either externally, the vast majority of them are external, or they could theoretically also be internal matters.
So the details on these claims, is there any chance that we could get more information on them?
Certainly, to the extent that they involve information about an identifiable individual or legal matters, then I'm happy to share that information. Generally, that would be confidential and could be shared in camera.
Perfect. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. I had one other question, and that was in Q3, I noticed the year-to-date there was a $100,000 bump, and I'm just wondering if that was some unusual event that occurred?
Mr. Chair, I don't believe it's an event as much. If I look at the comparison between last year's figures at this point in time and this year's, we're clearly delayed with respect to the delivery, for example, of external firms and their accounts. So what I would suggest is if memory serves, there was a significant adjustment in Q4 last year once we received those accounts. And I'm happy to provide kind of more of an analysis once we see those final numbers as part of our wrap-up report in January.
Great, thanks very much. Are there any other questions with respect to legal services? So that the Ottawa Police Services Board received this report for information? Received? Thank you. Is there any other business that members would like to raise? No other business? So now the consideration of a motion to move in camera, that the Ottawa Police Services Board adjourn the public portion of its meeting to move in camera to discuss confidential items pertaining to legal and personnel matters in accordance with Section 35(4)(b) of the Police Services Act. Those in-camera items include: 1, Labor Relations Unit Report, 3rd quarter 2019. 2, awards to be presented at the Community Police Awards ceremony. 3, back office transformation. 4, personnel matter involving a named individual. 5, legal services status report, settlements, 3rd quarter 2019. 6, complaints committee report. 7, personnel matter involving a named individual. 8, legal indemnification. And 9, an issue pertaining to a personnel matter involving a named individual. And now we'll, yes. You have a motion? Good. Thank you.